Hello, hello. Why does it feel like Thursday to me? I was like, oh my God, am I supposed to be live on the YouTube right now? It's like, no. It's fucking Wednesday, right? Yeah, it's Wednesday. Anyways, look at this new little swoopy swoop that's happening with my hair. It's called humidity, but I'm also trying to do something different. Anyway, so I wanted to talk with you guys. I posted a quote a couple days ago that actually just popped up on my news feed from something I had shared a couple years ago, and it felt like the right thing to say again. So I popped it in there, and it's honor the space between no longer and not yet. And I don't know who said it. Obviously, I didn't make it up. Somebody did. And somebody commented asking, Cody, I will tag you in this when I'm done. Somebody commented asking, can you expand on this? Because I don't fully understand this. And I'm so glad. Emily, hello, you beautiful creature. This feels like 2019, me and you hanging out on the live streams. Anyways, so I definitely will expand on it because it is a kind of complicated thing, especially when you haven't been exposed to it yet, or there's just a few things I can say. So if you have questions about this as you're listening, pop them in, please. So again, the quote is, honor the space between no longer and not yet. So we try as humans, right? We want to make these quantum leaps, or we want to change our whole existence, or we want to change our whole reality, which we absolutely can. Living proof in so many different ways. But what we do, because we also live in a society that teaches us that we need to have instant results, instant gratification, and if we don't, then we're doing something wrong, right? There's probably a lot of places in your life over the years, maybe you were I know when I was a kid, or 19, 20, in my 20s, this happened a lot where I was like, but I need to have this now. But I need to know this now. But why don't I have this yet? And because I didn't have it yet, I was just always moving, and I missed the space in between. And here's what I've learned over the past 7 years of dealing with really hard shit, I should say, probably best years of my life, also most difficult in a lot of ways. And what I've learned is it's in this space between that the lessons happen. It's in this space between that the real magic happens. What I mean by that is I'll give you a couple of examples for people who know me well, but you can maybe also relate in your own life. But this space between leaving Iowa and feeling okay with being back in Missouri. All of the lessons in between, ending this relationship and finding my new space here, my new grounding, my new internal space, all of that ick in between. And it's really uncomfortable a lot of times. A lot of times the space in between, I'm closing this door, but the new thing hasn't happened yet. It's very uncomfortable. And so we don't slow down enough to honor that space and what it has to offer for us. That space in between has the ability to offer you not only the ability to take a breath, a lot of times you can see and learn and understand why the thing happened and what path you actually want to go to. Here's the other thing that we do a lot. Okay, we'll take an 18-year-old. I'm no longer in high school, but I'm not yet sure what I want to do. So instead, society, the world, everybody tells us that we need to force ourselves into the next door, into the next not yet thing, right? Where, what if we don't know what that is? And how often in your life can you think that you kind of force-fed yourself something, or you tried to fit your, star-shaped self into this round hole because you thought you had to jump into the next? Because the space in between was oh God, what am I going to do here? This feels weird. This feels uncomfortable. But what also happens in that space between a lot of times is the healing. A lot of times that's when we hear the messages. That's when we understand what we really should be doing with our time, or what may really be our motivation, our purpose, our reasoning. A lot of times it's the space between that we miss the messages, we miss the lessons, we miss the healing. And then what ends up happening is we end up having to go backwards, right? I mean, I can think about all the things I've had to deal with and still deal with that were firmly rooted in years and years of jumping from one thing to the other, to the other, to the other, and not thinking in between, and not allowing myself space there to enjoy life. And a lot of times that's the other aspect, right? It's not always something hard either. It's not always something hard, but sometimes think about this. I've had people go from one job to another, or one boyfriend to another, or one house. And it's not the next thing that they never acknowledge the success, the gratitude for the thing that's no longer, even if it's a hard thing or it's a great thing or it's whatever. Like, you think about an 18-year-old, again, like, that's a big deal. Now, granted, I don't know a lot of 18-year-olds that practice gratitude practices, but I wish they would. But you know what I'm saying? So, example, let me think of a good example of this as an adult. Well, there's also a reason that we jump from not yet, or we jump from one thing to the other, is because the space between is scary. The unknown feels scary, right? It feels like you might be doing something wrong if you're sitting in the gray area for a minute. But again, a lot of the times the gray area is where the things are kind of circling, and you can really take a minute to make better choices or feel better about what you're doing or whatever it is. And so honoring the space between something, one door closing and another door opening, is such a beautiful gift that you can give to yourself, because it's the same thing with life. Like, think about, have you ever heard that quote, prayer, whatever it is, but about like the dash on your tombstone? Like, think about it. You can think about it that way. Like, you're no longer a baby, but you're not yet dead. So what if you didn't honor all of the space between? And that's what we do, though, because we're always on to the next thing and rushing around, and we feel like life passes us by. When a lot of times life passes us by because we don't give ourselves space to breathe, to think, to make our own decisions, to maybe say, you know what's funny? I could just sit here for a while, and that's okay. And a lot of the people, the happiest people I know that are genuinely happy and not just like hiding from their own shit, they do this, and they do this well, and they're calculated in that way too. Like, there's a calculation attached to the space between, because then the not yet, sometimes we don't know what the not yet is. We don't know what the next thing is. But like, for example, I left my job, so I am no longer employed. So this was in whatever year it was, 8 years ago. I am no longer employed at this place that I thought I was going to be at for the rest of my life. Like, I was a lifer. I would have told you that I was a lifer. But not yet did I know what in the hell I was going to do. And so there was this space between where I took interviews. I took like contract jobs to help some people organize their offices. I tried some things on. I was taking care of my responsibilities and being a big girl and doing my shit. But I tried some things on instead of just jumping into a job because I had to have a job. Instead, I was like, and I can give Tony a lot of credit for that, because he was the one who was like, do not take a job because you weren't supposed to, or because you think you're supposed to. Like, just wait and see. Like, obviously, sometimes you don't have a choice. In that moment, my unemployment and some savings that I had, like, I was able to like take space, right? But and I was able to fill in enough of my income with these little contract jobs that I did while I was in this space between and figuring out what that next career or whatever was for myself. And in that, yeah, Emily, it's 100% a space of healing. 90% of the time, I feel like it's a space of healing and rest, or enjoyment, allowing yourself to enjoy the things that life has to offer. But like, for me in that instance, in this scenario, the space between leaving the auto body shop and deciding that I was going to run my own company, there was a lot of things that transpired between there. And honoring that space allowed me to do what I do now, allowed me to be here with you now, allowed me to create this life I didn't even know was possible. Or if I wouldn't have honored the space between in all of its uncomfortable, icky grossness and all of the emotions that were involved and all of the fear that was involved, if I wouldn't have been curious in that moment and in that space and honored it, my life would be very different right now. We are always one decision away from a completely different life, right? And a lot of it comes from external pressure of what you think you have to do instead of looking at things a little bit differently. So I come from a very hardworking family, right? They work very hard. My dad is an excellent worker. My mom is too. Everyone in my family is. So for me to say to myself, oh, I'm not going to just jump into a secure job directly out of losing and leaving the body shop, that was really, really like breaking every social contract and every like ancestral decision that had ever been made. And everyone thought I was insane and was super worried, right? But I trusted myself and I honored that space, and I'm so glad that I did, because what happened in that space was the ability for me to learn more about what I'm capable of and what I really wanted. And instead of just jumping in, because in every job I went and interviewed on, they were trying to offer, I was running a multi-million-dollar operation, right? And when I would go interview in someone else's shop or dealership in my industry, they wanted me to be the receptionist because I'm a woman. And in that industry, that's just a thing that happens. And so I tried and I tried and I tried. And again, I worked these contract jobs to pay my bills. And then I finally found a coach and decided, you know what, I'm going to freaking use my skills in a different way than I even knew I could, right? And it's because I honored and I healed in those moments, though, of like my old truths that were from everyone else, the old rules that were from everyone else, which I still had to heal from long after I got to the not yet part. But there was also that space of not yet where I'm no longer going to try to find another job and I'm not yet actually earning money to pay my own bills, right? Like, so it was like this weird space in between that was really scary. But in honoring that, it got me to the other side of something that I truly love and to what I truly want. And so that is, again, kind of a drastic example, but I hope that you hear what I'm saying and you can realize that by giving yourself a pause in the space between and being mindful about it, though, not just pausing because you need to, like, you know, take a bender and get wasted or something like that, or you need to take a vacation. Like, sure, if you need a vacation, take a vacation. But you need to be mindful and strategic with those pauses so that they are setting you up for the not yet, for the next thing, for whatever it is, but it's truly something that you desire and that's going to serve you well. And we do this with relationships. You all know someone, or you've done it before in your past, that jumps from relationship to relationship to relationship. And it's like, I'm no longer with this person, but now I'm dating this person. Well, you never give yourself space between to heal. Find out who you are. Realize that no one else is going to make you happy but you. So you could have 1,000 men back to back to back to back to back. I did this as a teenager in an early 20s. Like, I was in one relationship. I was already talking to another guy as soon as the other one ended. Like, I was that girl. Oh, I just love relationships. I didn't realize that what I was doing was seeking something. I was looking for external something to be okay. I thought that's what you had to do because the world told me I needed to get married and have a baby, you know, and yada, yada. But it didn't work, and thank God. And I kept, you know, honoring myself in those moments. But either way, I had this space. I never let the space between exist. So then I did. And I realized, oh, hey, none of these people are going to make me happy but me. None of them are going to provide for me what I actually need but me. No dollars, no amount of love, no amount of time spent with me are going to make me happy but me. And it was in the space between where I was able to no longer be in a relationship and actually be ready to be in an actual good, healthy, no codependency relationship. And those of you who've been around, that's what happened in Iowa. When I went to Iowa, the biggest lesson I learned afterwards was that I broke every codependency rule that I had with anyone, especially Tony, who that's why we're able to be back together now, and he did too, and be happier and more like stress-free in a relationship than either of us have ever been. Like, it is just so good. And it's because the space between, we honored it. And we learned and we grew and we decided what was important for us. And before we got to that not yet, that next thing, we said, these are the rules. This is what's okay with me and what's not. This is who I am. This is what I know I need from no one else but me. And then we got to make a decision on if we were going to move forward. If it was supportive, if it didn't make either one of us give up things that we weren't willing to give up. See what I mean? Oh, yay, Jenny. I'm so glad that it's so good. As soon as I saw that comment, I was like, ooh, I have space and time. I am going to make a video because I love this topic. This topic is definitely a deep one and it can be used in so many places. So it's always something that I'm happy to talk about. And I'm so glad, Emily, that you had the same thought. Ha, Jeff, yes. This was actually from the Walmart. I was so excited. Jenny, giving yourself time to find out who you are and what you truly want during this space between, not about sleeping all day and getting wasted. And yes, exactly. It's being strategic and being mindful. I think the more strategic and mindful we are with anything that we're approaching, the better off it is. And we are able to get to what we really want. And figure it out along the way. And as we said before, do the healing we need to do in those spaces and let go of the things we need to let go in those spaces and things like that. Instead of just moving 100 miles an hour. Because when we move 100 miles an hour forward through all these things, we carry residual stuff with us that we never deal with. And eventually you have to deal with it. Eventually it boils up so much that it drives you crazy. Have you ever heard, I actually listened to, if you don't know who Dan Young is, you should follow him on Instagram. But anyway, I listened to him speak, and he's very successful and also one of the happiest humans I've ever met. And he spoke and he was like, you guys, guess what doesn't fucking matter? How much money you have. Like going 100 miles an hour to money doesn't matter. You know how many guys I know who have killed themselves in their Ferraris? Their Lamborghinis? A lot. So when we go 100 miles an hour, we think we're doing the right thing and we'll deal with it later. What happens instead, and we're not having the space between ever, is all this residual stuff and ick and whatever comes with us. And eventually you have to deal with it. Always. Or it will like be your demise. End of story. This is how it works. So that, I hope that's helpful. And if it is, as always, friends, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you think anyone else could benefit from this message, please share it on your page or with them, whichever you do. I always appreciate that. It helps. I think we have more space between. The more we fight it. Maybe if we take the time to work through it and learn the lesson we were supposed to learn, we have less space between. I think sometimes, Jenny, yeah, I think everybody's different. I think every situation is very different. Sometimes it's quick, sometimes it's not. Sometimes you're able to quickly see your next step and you're like, yes, I'm honoring all of this. I'm so excited and I'm ready to go, right? But every person is different. And I think no matter how deep or grounded or mindful or whatever you are, I think every situation is different as well. So keeping that in mind, everything is, none of this is cookie cutter. This is the only way ever, right? It's always having the acknowledgement and being willing to honor that in whichever way you feel you need to. Well, awesome, Emily. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. As always, you guys, thank you so much for watching and being here with me. I appreciate you so much. And go out into the world, be a good human, stay hydrated. Like and share this video if you don't mind. I appreciate it when you do that. And if you do not receive my newsletter, you should. If you go to jamiethurber.com/newsletter, you can sign up and you'll get cute little awesome good messages in your inbox that make you think and help you out occasionally. So jump on there if you're not. I love sending emails to people, so I will never spam you. And anyways, go out in the world and have a good day.